Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be doing the valve cover gaskets on this 2009 4.0 Nissan Pathfinder. Now this should fall in line with any third gen 4.0 Nissan Pathfinder, which is 2005 to 2012. So let's get into it now. All right, so we are under the hood here, and here is our lovely leaking 4.0. So show you what we're looking at here, guys. The sun probably will help, but or might not, depending on how this is coming out on camera. But you can see a lot of the leaking right along the valve cover. It's dripping down onto the exhaust manifold sometimes, and you know, creating that lovely oil smell. It's on both sides. This is a little darker over here because of the sun, but you know, you get a light on there. If you could see that valve cover bolt right there and there, you can see the leaking around both of them. All right, so there we go, guys. There is our leaks. Both are definitely leaking. Okay, so in this job we are doing the valve cover gaskets. I'll also be doing the spark plugs, and the intake manifold removal is part of this job as well. So definitely something to note. You can, you know, basically kill a few different things at one time while doing this. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So let's get into it. All right, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and get started and start getting this disassembled. Now, first thing I want to note here is I did disconnect the negative battery terminal. You don't have to do this, but you know, on bigger jobs I feel like it's better to be safer and sorry, and you know, just go ahead and disconnect it just to have peace of mind and, you know, not worry about anything. So do you have to do that? No, but I like doing it on jobs that are a little bit more involved like this. All right, so first thing we have here is our cover staring at us in the face, so we're going to go ahead and get that off first. There are two 10 mils holding this in, so I'm just going to take a 10 mil here on an impact. You could use a socket wrench, whatever tool of your choice, but I find using, you know, power tools for the most part makes it a little bit easier and not as knuckle busting when you do jobs like this. So we got both of our 10 mils out. I'm just going to sit these up on the cowl here for right now. And now our cover is free. You should be able to pop it up and off. Let's see here. Actually, I'm going to put it to the back here. That's where I pulled it up. And there's another spot right there. So you got your two rubber grommets holding it in on these bolt mounts. Okay, so that's basically what you're doing, is just pulling those rubber grommets up off of the manifold. All right, so covers off. I actually took the 10 mils down and put them back where they belong, just so we don't lose them when we know where they go. So took them off the cowl and just threaded them back in here lightly, so we have them there for when we need them when we go to put this back together. Next thing, we're going to remove this air intake tubing. Okay, so if you look right where that cover 10 mils go, there are some more 10 mils, one on each side. We're going to back these out, and these are going to be holding in and retaining the air intake box right here. So this one's a little tight. There we go. Go ahead and get this thing out, and I'm going to put these up on a cowl too for right now. Let's put one here, this other one out. All right, so just putting them both up there for right now. Now we have that off. We're going to remove this breather hose here, and we're going to back that off with some clamps to get this right off of the intake. All right, so I just have some pliers here, nothing fancy, just some, you know, thicker jawed pliers with a little bit of strength on them, so I can easily pull that back. If it's rubber welded, you can take the pliers and shake it off a little bit like that and twist it back and forth. This is probably going to be a little bit dry and old for any of these vehicles. I mean, the newest one of these is what, 12 years old now. So there we go, that is off, guys. So we got that breather hose off, so that is now disconnected, and all we need to do now is actually remove the tubing assembly itself. All right, guys, so we have some hose clamps retaining the air intake tubing, so don't have to fire them out. We're just backing them off a little bit right there, do it from right here on this accordion side. Don't think we need to loosen that one up. No, we're good. This should come right off, guys. So now we have the entire air intake assembly out. we can now have a better view and access to get to the parts we're trying to get to. All right, guys, so now that we have the air intake tubing, hose, whatever you want to refer to it as, off, you can see pretty clearly at everything that needs to be done here. So it's not a lot of work. Now, one thing I do want to note, there's different approaches you can do this. You know, there's different orders. You know, you can start here, you can start removing the intake manifold. There's no, you know, right or wrong order per se. It's just about trying to disassemble, you know, I guess you can say the least amount possible. Just get everything out of your way so you have access to remove the valve covers up and off. Okay, so of course the intake manifold has to come out as mentioned. So just to get an idea of what we're looking at, yes, there are different, you know, approaches, you know, different orders in which you can disassemble this. I'm just going to go about it how I see fit, and I'm going to try to do the least amount possible just so we don't have a bunch of extra work ahead of us. But there we go, guys. This is what we're looking at. So let's go ahead and start getting it disassembled. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is just get this evap hose out of the way. So you can see this is the evap emission system. It has that little clip right there retaining it. You don't have to disconnect the whole thing. I'm just going to push it out of our way, and if we follow it, it comes right up to the intake manifold, which it's also you know, retained here with a clamp and a clamp here. I'm just going to see if we can remove this clamp here, and we're going to pull it right up and off of the intake manifold. All right, guys, I'm on this thing here. Get it to come up. There we go. Probably going to have to rock it back and forth here. All right, guys, got that popped off. So we should have that free of the intake manifold, and we don't have to worry about that hose anymore. All right, so now we're just going to get into, you know, basically just taking things off as we go. So we have this harness right here going into the throttle body. Press the little tab here. Using my right hand, just pull it straight back. So that's disconnected. Okay, we're going to come over here. So mentioned we got that out of our way. We're just going to pop this line out of our way. Should give us enough playroom to get the valve cover out when the time comes. So next thing here is we're just going to try to free up the harness to give us some room to get around everything we need to get around in order to get this out. So I just have a flathead. I'm going to try to push one side in while pushing the other side with the flathead. So I'm going to push one side in. That pop out. Try to hold it there. Pop that other side. Bang, got that one out. Have to do the one next to it right here in the middle. Let's get this one out. With something like these, this is going to be harder to get out than go back together. So there we go, guys. That is good. We got that undone. Got some more harness stuff going on here. So if you notice, there's a harness right behind it. All right, we're going to unplug that. Tab is right on the top. Probably going to be hard to see, but there we go. We got that pulled out. So that's unplugged. All right, guys, if we look down here, we have the fuel injector harness, that gray one. You can see it right there. There's another one right here, and obviously there's one in the front. There's three, because 3 on each bank. Now, be good to get it undone, but I think it's possible we might be able to leave them plugged in on the fuel injectors and just leave the harness running right here, but we can disconnect it elsewhere in order to allow us to do that. We'll revisit that if we have to, but we're just going to keep disassembling this harness. Now, I'm going to pull that out same way I did the other ones, these little tabs. Push one side in with the flathead, push the other side in, and then pull. Okay, we got that one. There is another one right here towards the front. Let's see if we can get it. Got it. All right, so that one's out. Definitely tight on those fuel injectors, but I think it's perfectly in here like in between the intake manifold and the valve cover, that it doesn't need to be disassembled anymore. But we do need to finish getting it off right here. So like on the ignition coils, for example, they need to come off. So you press the tab in, it was facing the inner part of the motor. So pull it right off. All right. So that is the front one. We got the middle one right here. Take that out. All right. And then we have that rear one back there. We're gonna have to get that out as well. So we're just gonna go ahead and pull that one off as well on that rear one. And that is disconnected as well. Okay, now there's another harness down here crossing over the valve cover. This is also held in. It's going to be hard to see. It's held in on a tab here. So I just pulled it off of that tab. It wasn't in there too tight, but this is going to be an oxygen sensor. Okay, so if you can see, there's a clip right there. My thumb's on it. I'm just going to press it in, pull it right off. All right, so we got that harness, everything covering our driver's side here, pretty much off. Now we do have this breather hose here as well going to the brake booster. If we follow it, this is going back to the intake manifold. So I think what we're going to do with that is disconnect that once we have a little better access when we pull the intake manifold off. But once we get the intake manifold off, we can push that out of the way and that'll clear up the valve cover here. Okay, so I think we're pretty good, guys, for right here, and I think we can go ahead and start getting into the disassembly of the intake manifold. All right, guys, so we are here on the passenger side here of the car on the side of the intake manifold. As you can see, we have a hose going in right here. I'm just gonna take some pliers on a clamp. We're gonna pull that clamp back, and we should be able to go ahead and get that thing out of here. I can get that clamp down in a little better spot here. Let's see. All right, I think that'll do. Go ahead and rock this thing back and forth here. Okay, and I should be able to get that thing off now. All right, got that pulled off, guys. So that hose is off. Now the rest of this hose down in here, it's held in with a wire tie retainer clip. So if you just got like a panel popper, you know, a regular panel popper, you should be able to get underneath of it and free it up and get that thing out in its entirety. Just trying to sneak under it here with this tool, and there we go, guys, got that popped out. So that is good out of our intake manifold now. So that hose is completely freed up. Now if we're looking here, right here at the harness that we just got all the tabs out of, there's another retaining tab right here. Okay, so we're going to have to take that wire tie retainer tab off of this part of the harness as well, and we should have that harness, I would say, almost completely free, if not completely free at that point. So let's go ahead and get that out, and then we can move on with the intake manifold removal. All right, guys, got that popped out there of the rear. Now I'm hoping that it gives us enough room with this harness to work around it, and we can escort the intake manifold out when the time comes. Okay, so I think we should be good as far as that. Other harness here that we need to remove in order to get this intake manifold disassembled is this one right here. Take that off. We're just going to put that to the side right now. Okay, so that's good. We're looking pretty free over here. Next thing we're gonna have to do is remove this bolt right here, and we're gonna just lift this off for now, off of the intake manifold, and that should give us access to all the bolts here to get the intake manifold removed. So let's get this off. All right, guys, so this is a 12 mil. I just got a 12 mil here. Ooh, she is tight. I got a 12 on a 3/8 drive wrench. I want to be extremely careful because these intake manifolds are plastic. If you know anything about plastic, it likes to break after time, especially when it's been hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold a million times. So we got that out. We're going to put the bolt back in, and that's free. Now We don't need to disconnect all these vacuum lines and all that extra stuff. We just want to put it out of our way. We just want to get everything escorted out of our way so we have access to remove what we need to remove. And now we're looking, we do have the access to pretty much go ahead and get out our intake manifold. So let's get into it. All right, so we have pretty much everything, you know, obstructing the intake manifold here, freed up, all the hoses and harnesses and all that stuff. Now, something I want to note, going into the throttle body, we have 2 coolant lines, okay? In the factory service manual, they do recommend disconnecting these, draining the coolant, you know, all that fun stuff. What I'm going to try to do is be lazy, leave this attached, and I'm hoping if I get the intake manifold disconnected, I could simply flop it back, fold it back, and I don't have to disconnect these. So now we just need to focus on getting the bolts retaining the intake manifold assembly in its entirety. So if we look here on this bracket here on the side, passenger side, if you look on the bracket, there's a 12 mil here, and there is a 12 mil right there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have a 12 mil here, a deep 12 on a 3/8 drive socket wrench. Just going to get on this back one first, break it free, pretty tight. Got that broken free though. Okay, and then I'm going to get on that front one, probably with a regular size socket, not a deep, and then we'll get that one crack free as well and get both of those 12 mils out. All right, if you see here, it's going to be a little tight with that hose, but I want it a regular socket, and that one's pretty tight too, but got it backed out, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and get those backed out, and then we'll have these 2 12 mils freed up from our intake manifold. All right, guys, I'm on this rear bolt, got it out. Let's put it right up on the cowl. All right, and we have both of those passenger retaining bolts out. All right, so we got both of those 12 mils on the passenger side out, retaining on the bracket for this intake manifold. So now we can actually get out the mounting bolts that mount it to the intake. Okay, so we have 7 10 mil bolts going down the center of this. Okay, now the factory service manual recommends removing these in the reverse order of the torque sequence. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm just going to crack them free first with a socket wrench. So I just have a 10 mil 3/8 drive socket wrench, nothing crazy. This is the sequence right here. So it says reverse order, so that means we're starting with number 7. So there is 7. We'll go to 6, which is the back one, that all the way in the back up against the firewall. That one's probably going to be rather tight. All right, so that one is back here. It's probably going to be a crap spot to try to get to that harness, but if you remove the harness, you should get enough playroom to get in here. So I'm just pushing it back, the harness back towards the firewall. That gray harness might be in my way. Yeah, nope, I'm on it. There you go. All right, breaking that free. So we got number 6, which is the firewall bolt, backed out. And we're gonna go to 5, which is the nut right here in the front. And we got 4, which is gonna be this one right here. Not trying to get too crazy with these. You want to be careful with them, you know what I mean? Especially if they've never been taken off like this thing with 230,000 miles. We're going to get to number 3, which is in the center. So this is going to be the center front one right here in the middle. So we're going to go ahead and get that one crack free. All right. Then we're going to go to number 2, which is the one right behind it in the center. Okay, got that one. And then we're going to go to number 1, which is going to be this one right here, dead center on the driver's side of the manifold. And there we go. Got all them backed out, guys. Well, broken free, I should say. Now I'm going to go ahead and back them out. So this should all be pretty much free by hand. You can go through and go ahead and start backing them out. Make sure that you note that you had studs and nuts here on this one right here and on this one right here. So all these other ones are bolts, but we do have studs there and there. Just want to take note of that. I like taking pictures as I go along, something I would recommend, which I have already done. So If you haven't, it might be a good time to take yourself some pictures. But there we go, guys. We'll go ahead and get those out, just back them out, and then we'll further approach getting this disassembled. All right, so we have all of the 7 retaining bolts here in the middle of the intake manifold removed. Just be careful with the 2 inner ones. As I was backing them out by hand with a socket, I just kept the magnet on them, and then I just pulled them out with the magnet. Okay, so we got all of them out. I just kept them in order to the side. They're all the same length, and we got our 2 nuts, but just kept them in order just in case. We got all that out, guys. There's a couple things here still on the intake manifold, but I think we might be able to get it up and out and squirt it, you know, and pull it back, maybe without disconnecting those coolant lines, but we're gonna see, guys. So let's go ahead and see if we can get this thing up and off. All right, guys, I'm gonna try to be really careful here. See, it is moving. That's what we want. Remember, we do have that breather hose in the rear as well. Pretty tight here. Feel like someone's holding us back. There we go. Just coming up and off. Just that thing on the top is going to be flopping. Just be aware. So what I want to do is pull this forward a hair. Now that I got forward a hair, I should be able to potentially get this breather hose out. So let me see. I'm just going to try to get some pliers on that hose clamp, I should say. I'm on it. I get it pushed back here. Pretty bad spot here for this hose clamp, I must say. But I got it. I hope you can see, but I was able to maneuver that off back here. All right, so there's that breather hose. So we got that one going to the booster off now. Feel like something's still holding us in the rear here. Yep. So this gray harness here in the back, right here, that is holding us because there's a wire on it. So if you look at the top of it, there is a little tab. We're just going to put a flat head in that and pop that thing right off. All right, just like that. That was definitely restricting us. I was wondering, it felt like something was holding that back in, and it wasn't just that breather hose, it was that. So it might be easier just to go ahead and pull that off first. Then you could go ahead and get your rear brake booster breather hose here disconnected. But now that thing should be super free. All right, so now that that harness is completely freed up, brake booster breather hose is freed up, I wonder if we got enough room to pull this up. So we need to look back here. Yep, and we can flip this back. So let me show you what I'm doing here. I got this in hand, still connected at those coolant lines. I'm gonna see if I can flip this over here. Hopefully you can see. Just wanna see how we're looking here. Yeah, should be able to turn it over just like that, guys. So there we go. I did not want to disconnect the coolant lines and deal with coolant. Got enough to deal with on this job. One less thing, make this a lot easier. So there it is, guys. We got the intake manifold all flipped back, and now we're good to go. We can keep getting into the disassembly and getting what we need off to get this job done. All right, guys, so we got that intake manifold pushed back to the side. If you can see, I did put a microfiber towel here right through the runners, so that way we don't have any uh-ohs or have any debris or contaminants falling in. So definitely want to put something there to protect it. As you can see, we do have the harness pretty much unobstructed on this side. It's still going to be retained on the valve cover here with the fuel injector harnesses with these little wire ties here. So we do need to pop these out here and here, and that way it'll free that up from the valve cover on the right hand side on the passenger, and then we can go ahead and hopefully get everything disassembled here. So you should be able to, they're similar to the other ones, should be able to push them in here on the side and just start pulling them out and off. All right, guys, I'm actually going to get behind this thing with a panel popper because it's fighting me. And there we go. Let's make this easy, work smarter, not harder. Just pressing in one side, pulling it out. There we go. Freed up, harness is good. So now that will allow us to hopefully get the rest of this disconnected here. All right guys, so now that we got that harness disconnected, there is one more thing, and it's going to be retaining both the valve covers together is this PCV hose. Might be pretty stiff and brittle. I'm just trying to work it with my hand. Got it. Try to do it on this side as well. It's a little tighter. Rock it back and forth. Yep, she broke free. Now I should be able to pull it back, hopefully anyway. Switch hands. Oh, kind of broke a little bit. That sucks. So that's why you got to be careful, guys. This thing is definitely brittle. I'll see if I can do something about that. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, be careful. That just broke on me. But there we go, guys, that is off. Now what we need to do is just pretty much get our ignition coils out. We already got the harnesses disconnected on the driver's side here, so we got all of our ignition coils disconnected over here. We do have to get them disconnected over here, in addition to this main engine harness. I believe here on this mounting tab we're going to have to pull that back up and off, so looking like we're gonna have to get that off there. So let's go ahead and get these coils off, and then we'll see where we're at and see if we can get this cover off. All right, so we do have this gray harness here and this main harness being held in with some retainers on this bracket. So I just have an angled pick here. Let me see if I can get this pressed in and out. Kind of hard to see here, but it should be able to get pressed in with the square that's on the side of it, and I should be able to release the tab for it to pull up and off. Let's see if it'll go as it's intended. All right guys, I'm actually pressing it from the inside, and I got it. That thing, woo, she was fighting. So I actually went inside with this little pick. She really should be able to press it from the outside, but she wasn't having it, I'll tell you that much. So looks like this harness is just retained right here. See the tab, see if I can come in and push it out with a pick. Yep, I did it. There we go. Awesome, got that freed up. So now should be able to free up all these cool ignition coils here. Okay, I think this one might be easier once the coil comes out, but there we go, guys. We have that harness freed up. We're going to go ahead and fire these ignition coils out, and then we'll see where we're at. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get these coils freed up. Like I said, on the harness on this front one, I'm just going to do, once it's out, make it a little bit easier. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to crack these 10 mils free with a socket wrench. So this is a 10 mil on the ignition coils. Just got a 3/8 drive socket wrench with a 10 mil on the extension, nothing fancy. Just want to be able to access them with ease, and that's all we're trying to do here. So just going to go ahead and get each one of these coils bolts out here, and then we should be able to remove our coils, and then we can go ahead and get our valve cover off from there. So let's go ahead and get these coil bolts out, guys, and then we'll take it from there. All right, guys, all three 10 mils retaining the ignition coils are out. So just want to pull them up and out. All right, I'm just going to put these to the side. Just be very gentle with them, because things like this don't like being played with or messed with. This one here, we're going to have to get the harness off, but as you can see now, it's pulled off and we're not working with no room. We can easily access this to pull it up and out. Okay, so there we go, harness off. That is good to go. So now we can pull that harness back, and if we look here, just about have all the room we need in order to get this valve cover off. Now I'm going to try to get this out without removing these. I do not want to remove them. It'd be really nice if I can do so without removing them. So let's see if we can do that, and then we'll be good to go. All right, guys, we got everything obstructing the valve cover out. This should be free to come out. I'm hoping we can just sneak it out around here. What we're going to do is try to get all the bolts out and then free it up and kind of angle it out this way through the back towards the firewall. This bracket will kind of be in the way. I'm pressing it back, so you can move that almost out of your way and bend it. I'm bending it a hair. hopefully that'll give us enough playroom to work around that. So one thing we want to note, the ignition coils, you know, they're out. So these cylinder wells are open. Make sure you don't have anything, you know, fall in them, obviously. You know, they'll be okay open for, you know, a few moments, not the end of the world. Nothing's really going to get in them, but just be careful working around them so that nothing does get in them. So what we want to do is go ahead and get the 10 mils holding in the valve cover to the motor broken free. So we're going to crack all 10 mils free, and then we'll be able to then back them out and get the valve cover off. So I'm just going to approach this essentially as I did the intake manifold. I have a 10 on a 3/8 drive with an extension. Now we're just going to go ahead and back each one of these 10s out. Now in the factory service manual, it does recommend removing these in the reverse order, just as it was implied on the intake manifold. So here's the torquing sequence here from the factory service manual, and we'll go ahead and start with number 10, which is the back one. So I don't think I'm getting to that with an extension. Probably just going to be able to hit it with a deep. You see here, yup, these shouldn't be in here tight at all, guys. Got that one broken free on number 10. And now we're just going to go ahead and go through the entire sequence in reverse order to get each one of these bolts out. So that was 10. We'll go ahead and get to 9 here, which is the front one in the dead center, or close to dead center, I should say. Be kind of tight up against this VVT solenoid. Yep, got that one broken free. So that one's a little tight there up against that, but got that one broken free. Yep. All right, so we got that one free. And essentially, guys, I'm just going to go through the entire sequence here, back each one out individually, going down here to the bottom corner here up against the firewall for number 8, and just going through the entire sequence. All right, guys, we're still taking the 10 mils out of the valve cover in reverse order. I just want to note that I'm at number 6, and that is a very tight spot down there. So I took a quarter drive with about a 6-inch quarter drive extension, and I went right through the center of that bracket, if you can see it right there. Okay, so it just goes right through the bracket, and that's how I'm going to get that one out. So I just wanted to note that, but should be able to get in it and have enough space to go ahead and get to number 6 and turn that out. So just wanted to note that, guys. That's how I approached that one. Definitely a tight spot. So quarter drive is the answer for number 6. All right, guys, we got all 10 mils surrounding the valve cover out. Okay, so just crack them loose with a socket wrench, then back them out by hand with an extension, or 10 mil, whatever was easy access, nothing crazy. So now this valve cover should be free. Probably isn't just going to pull up, but I'm going to try, because you never know, you might get lucky. And it's plastic, so putting stuff underneath of it, not always the best idea. Not always the best idea, but might need to, guys, because she is not budging. So I'm going to see if I could put a little pry bar maybe here in the front. There we go. I hope this is on camera, but I got it in the front, just lightly pressing up against the fuel rail. There we go. So I got some separation. If I can pull on it now, it'd be nice. Stupid tight, of course. All right, sorry guys, I had to move the camera. It's just in my way and I'm hitting it. This thing is pretty tight still, fighting me. It's gonna fight me every step of the way. Obviously, why wouldn't it? There we go. All right. There we go, guys. I'm gonna push it out over here. And boom, got it out. So we got that thing out, guys, without removing this POS here. We can see where we got some RTV and stuff, so definitely want to note where there's RTV, and I'll review that when the time comes. But yeah, guys, we got some cleaning up to do, so let's go ahead. We're going to just do this side, and then we'll get into the other side. Instead of having both sides opened up, we're just going to do one at a time. So we got this side off, everything's exposed out. So what we're going to do is clean this up, and then we'll go ahead and get this all back together with the valve cover, and then we'll go ahead and do the other side. All right, guys, so we got to clean this up, of course, as your install is only as good as your preparation and cleaning work, because, you know, you can slap a valve cover back on this and all that, but probably won't have the best chance at sealing. And if it's still leaking by any chance, you wouldn't be able to pinpoint and notice because you left all the old oil and residue from it when it was previously leaking. Okay, so multiple ways you can go about cleaning this. Okay, so I have, you know, some paper towels. I'm just going to start with going around the edge here, just wiping off the initial debris that we see. You can also use shop towels. You can use shop rags, microfiber rags, you know, whatever floats your boat. All right, but we're just going around here with this paper towel. I'm going to clean it up. Other forms of cleaning, you could use some red Scotch-Brite, which I'm probably going to go around in some of these areas. We do need to note that we do have RTV in each corner here where the camshafts go, so we're definitely going to work some of this old RTV out. I want to use plastic razor blades. Some people choose to use metal razor blades. I'm not a huge fan of them, but not to say you can't do it successfully. So multiple ways to go about cleaning this, guys. I'm going to be using a little bit of brake cleaner. You could use degreaser, but I'm going to use a little bit of brake cleaner, paper towels, plastic razor blades, and a little bit of red Scotch-Brite is how I'm going to be approaching it. So that's how we're going to get this cleaned up and ready to go for install. All right, guys, you obviously want to try to keep as much debris out of here as possible. So like right here, I have a plastic razor blade trying to just cut this RTV out and pull it out. See how I got it right there? Trying to pull it out and not let it actually fall into the motor. So just trying to be careful here, getting this crap out of here. All right, so I'm doing pretty good here. Got it all pretty much out. I mean, if a little piece of something happens to get in there, it's not the end of the world. You can try blowing it out with compressed air if you have access to shop air. Just try to work cleanly as possible. That's what I'm going to be doing here. See, I'm just pushing everything away from the opened engine. Okay, so just want to continue to do that. Same thing when I take some little bit of brake cleaner and Scotch-Brite, going to go around the edge, just try to stay away from the internals as much as possible. But you know, plastic razor blades like this, Scotch-Brite, paper towels, brake cleaner, degreaser, all going to be your friend when cleaning all this up, guys. So just want to note that. Let's get this cleaned up. All right, guys, making progress here cleaning. Just going around with Scotch-Brite, red Scotch-Brite. Awesome thing to use when doing valve cover gaskets. Been doing it for years and years and years and years. Never had any issues. It works great. You can see it's coming extremely clean with doing this. So there we go, guys. All right, so we are cleaned up here, guys. So if you can see, try to get in all our tight corners where all the RTV was and where it's going to go. Looks really good. This is just a combination of paper towels, brake cleaner, red Scotch-Brite, and plastic razor blades. That's it. That's what I used. Plastic razor blades were mostly used just for the RTV, and then the Scotch-Brite and the paper towels and brake cleaner were used to clean up the edge. And I try to get around the side of the edge too to help identify, to make sure that this is not leaking when this goes back together, guys. So this is all cleaned up, ready for install. So let's get into the installation. All right, so here is our old valve cover gasket, guys, and here is our new one for both sides. So they are side specific. You can see which one matches up. So this one right here will be the passenger side right hand. You can see that they match up. All right, so this versus that. I got the Felpro kit, which is what I use for most gaskets, no matter, you know, valve cover or any other type of gasket. Felpro is usually a good option, you know, 90% to 95% of the time. So here's the part number. You see Nissan 4.0 3.5 VS 50608R. All right, so there is the part number for the Felpro gasket. Now, this is only the valve cover gasket. Technically, the spark plug seals, which go around the spark plug wells to seal the oil from going in the spark plugs, are part of the valve cover itself. This is common with other Nissan models as well, like the Altimas, Maximas, all that stuff. So you do want to buy new valve covers. All right, so you can really pick whatever option you want. I would say get them from Rock Auto. Here are some options here. They are very reasonably priced, but that will be how you get the spark plug seals, okay, for the valve cover. So you need to get a new valve cover. All right, both sides, left and right, one for each. That will give you the spark plug well seals. And then you can, you know, some of them do come with the valve cover gasket, others don't. I think the valve cover, you know, gasket from Felpro is probably your best bet. So you can buy that separately and then use whatever gasket it comes with, your choice and preference. But that is what you should be doing, is getting a new valve cover with the seals, and then you get the valve cover gasket, and then you put it together for all brand new sealing on this valve cover. Okay, guys, so let's get into putting this back together, and then we'll get on to the other side. All right, guys, now for reference, you know, this does have a bottom and top side. It has a channel basically, as you can see, and it's going to go into the channel around the valve cover. Okay, now these valve cover gaskets are different size, so make sure you match up the correct one. This is the smaller one here on the passenger side, right hand side. So we're just going to start up here in the corner, and you should just essentially be able to press it in and it'll start taking form. Okay, so nothing crazy, guys. We're just going to press this in all the way around, let it take form, and then this thing will be ready for install, guys. All right, so nothing crazy, should fall right in line. You can kind of see where it's outlined with grooves around the bolt holes as it's shaped correctly. And there we go, guys. Just want to go in and make sure it's in all the way around, make sure it's nice and tight, feels installed well. All right, I'm going to go over it, but there you go, guys. That's how you get the valve cover gasket installed into the gasket. Wouldn't be a bad idea to take a little bit of oil and put them around these seals so it's nice, snug, good fit. Once you slide the valve cover back over, you should do that with O-rings, and I would probably suggest a little bit of lubricant here on these as well while you put it on for just good, nice initial seal. Okay, guys? So, all right, guys, so we have everything prepped up, valve cover ready to go back on. This is all clean. Everything is clean, ready for mating and good to go. So the two spots where we need to put RTV are around where the camshaft goes. All right, so we need to put it in here. So basically from here to here. And then in the lower corner down here, the one that's really hard to see and get to down here, same thing, like a L. So basically we're doing an L here and an L here. Flashlight is falling. But we're just going to be using a good RTV. Personally, I like the right stuff. This is Permatex. You can get it at any parts store, Walmart, Amazon. Right stuff has always been a quick drying good application for me. I've had probably 90 to 95% success rate with it, with any application that it's, you know, intended for. So definitely would suggest that, but just need a good RTV. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We got the right stuff here, and we're going to put a little here and just get it all right here in that corner. All right, now I went a little bit further up. Not the end of the world. This thing comes out really fast, this particular can, so I just went up a little higher than I needed to, but not the end of the world. It's just a little bit more sealage, guys. Nothing wrong with that. All right, so we're going to get it down here in this corner as well, and there we go, guys. We have our right stuff ready. I'm gonna let that set up for 1 minute, and then we're going to grab our valve cover and just squirt it back in and get that on there evenly and, you know, as on point as possible, guys. So let's get the valve cover. All right, guys, so you got your new valve cover, fresh as can be, and I'm gonna try to get this thing in there how it came out. Not gonna be fun. I'm working in some really tight area, including where I got the camera, so you can see this. So make sure you give me a thumbs up for this effort, guys. Come on. All right, so we want to kind of get it aligned and then press it in and forward. I'm trying to align these bowl holes, and I could just drop it in place, and I think I got it. Yes, I did. All right, guys. Yeah, that thing went right into place perfect. Thankfully, that was, woo. That's gut-wrenching work right there, guys. All right, so valve cover on. Wanted to just get on there nice and flat and even. Definitely wanted to get it to go over those spark plug seals nice. All right, so there we go. That's in place, and now we're just going to start all our bolts by hand. Nothing crazy, guys. We're just going to get them, put every one of these 10 in by hand. I'm just going to start finger threading these in, and then we'll get them secure by hand and torque the spec. All right, so I got all 10 of the surrounding valve cover retaining bolts, 10 mils, all locked in, finger tight. I went around them with an extension and a socket and just got them all finger tight. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get into torquing this to spec. Now, this is the torque sequence and torque spec from the Nissan factory service manual for these trucks, okay? Now, this is a two-step torque sequence. The first step is going to be 17 inch-pounds, so we're going to go through the entire sequence of all 10 at 17, and then the second step is going to be 74 inch-pounds, and we're going to go through the entire sequence again at 74 inch-pounds, okay? So we're going to go ahead, start it off at 17. I got my inch-pound torque wrench locked in. So if we're looking at this diagram, number 1 is going to be right here. So we're going to go ahead, start with number 1 at 17. Shouldn't be much at all. I don't think I got them crazy tight by hand, but I don't think I should have to go crazy far at 17 inch-pounds either. So all right, there we go, guys. First one locked in to 17. And what we're going to do is just go throughout the sequence of all 10, locking each one into 17. So that was 1. 2 is going to be directly across from that, which is this lower one here. So I'm going to go ahead, lock in 2. Same deal, torque to spec, 17 inch-pounds. And then we'll see where we're at. Guys, got 2 done. We're going to go on to 3. Top one here. It's kind of hard to do this where the camera's at and torque them at the same time, but doing my best for you guys here. So, and I just have like a 6-inch quarter drive extension on a quarter drive 10 mil. All right, so that was 3, torque to 17. So let's get on to number 4, which is going to be directly across from that one. It's going to be this one down here. All right, so let's get that one. All right, 4 locked in, guys. So we're just going to finish out the sequence at 17 inch-pounds, going through each one until we get to 10, and then we'll get on to step 2. All right, guys, we're on to number 10 here, which is that back one up against the firewall here. So got that one locked in. So all 10 are now torqued in step 1 to 17. Now we're going to go through the sequence again at 74 and get them all locked in for the final step. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and go through step 2, which is torquing everything to 74 inch-pounds. Okay, so right back through the steps of 1 through 10. So we're going to start right here at 1. It's not going to be much more than 17, just maybe about a quarter to a half turn. So there's 1, and we're just going to go through and get everyone locked in. We're going to jump down to 2, up to 3, 4, and go through the entire sequence. I'm not going to do it on camera, as you know, we just recorded the last one and trying to save a little bit of time on this long video. So there we go, guys. We're just going to go 1 through 10 at 74 inch-pounds, lock all these in, and then the valve cover will be 100% torque to spec installed. All right, guys, we got all 10 bolts here torqued to 74 inch-pounds in the second sequence. So this is good to go. We are locked in. Now the passenger side here is done as far as the valve cover seal and install. I am going to be doing the spark plugs in this job. As I mentioned, this is a great time to do the spark plugs. So I'm going to do that and then put these ignition coils back on. So, you know, if you're doing this job, once you got the intake manifold off, it's a great time to be doing the spark plugs. So I'm going to do those, and then we'll get on to the other side and get this back together. All right, guys, and if you're interested in doing the plugs, NGK laser iridiums I got are the DIL FR5A11. I just pulled the old one out of it. That was the plug. Kind of hard to zoom in on there, but it was the same NGK. New one here. So let's get this thing installed, get all 3 knocked out while we got it open, and we will be good to go. So definitely would recommend doing this. Definitely a good time. And the torque spec is 18 foot-pounds for the spark plugs, 216 inch-pounds if you convert it to inch-pounds, and that's what I'm doing to use my inch-pound torque wrench. I'm converting it to 216 inch-pounds. So 18 foot-pounds, 216 inch-pounds. Let's get it locked in. Shouldn't be nothing crazy. pretty tight. Yep, there we go, guys. 216. So 18 foot-pounds locked in, and we'll do the other two, and we'll have this whole bank situated, ready to go back together. All right, guys, I got the spark plugs in. So, you know, if you're doing spark plugs in this job, get them all in, torque to spec, ready to go. And what I'm going to do now, since this valve cover is all torque to spec with the sequence, I'm going to go ahead and put the ignition coils back on, and we're going to do this just to seal this up. Okay, so for putting the harness here back in line, I just had it pushed to the side. We're going to flip it back over. This one is easier to just go ahead and plug in while the coil is out, in my opinion. Probably can do it with it in, but why work harder if you don't have to? So make sure that's in there tight. Make sure you get the click, press the coil right back into its spot. And then I have the ignition coil bolts up here on the cowl, and I'm just going to finger thread each one in as I go along. So we got that first one in the front right there in, got that started, and I'm just going to work my way down. So I have the next coil here. Just going to click this one in as well. Might as well, since it's out and easy. We can hear that nice click. Blow some of that stuff out of there. All right, line that up with the bolt hole. Press that bad boy back in. Got that one pressed in. Start that 10 off. Okay, and then we got the last one here for the rear, and I'm going to go ahead plug this one in as well. That plugged up. You hear that click. Then we're going to drop that bad boy down in there, and I'm going to go ahead and start that one off finger tight as well. Okay, so you get all three of these 10 mils here on the coils finger tight, and then we're actually going to torque these three to spec. Okay, all right, guys, we got all three of those ignition coil bolts, 10 mils, locked in finger tight. So now we are going to torque them to spec. So here is the blowout diagram from the factory service manual. As you can see, the torque spec for these three 10 mils is going to be 62 inch-pounds. All right, so got my torque wrench here locked in, 62 inch-pounds. It's not that crazy at all, nothing serious, just a nice snug lock in. All right, so that's all we're doing, is getting these snugged in. Doesn't hurt to go back over them. Same deal with the valve cover bolts. Always doesn't hurt to double check your torque. All right, so there we go, guys. We got our ignition coils back in. That is all now torqued to spec. Now, if you remember, I did say that I bent this bracket here just to get the valve cover out. I did bend it back into position. So what we can do is just to button up this side and get it all squared away. Since we're essentially done working over here, we're going to plug this stuff back up and just get it, you know, done and essentially ready for the intake manifold. So we're going to plug that harness back in. Going to go ahead and slide that bad boy right back on. You will hear it click. Then we got this big Balboski right here, and that just is going to slide right back over the upper portion right there. You'll see where it goes, and you'll hear it click right back in. So that is all in, guys, squared away. Everything is buttoned back up. We can even take it a little step further, and since the valve cover's back in, we can retain the fuel injector harness clamps for the wire harness right back into the valve cover. So this is all clean, good to go, guys. We got the entire passenger side right hand bank complete. All right, all back together, buttoned up. So this side is completely squared away. Now we just need to get into the driver's side, and then we can put this back together in its entirety and be done with it. All right, so let's get into the driver's side. All right, guys, so we're just going to approach this driver's side pretty much just as we did the passenger. Okay, there's a couple obstructions here, like there's this fuel line. I think we can bend out of the way. I don't think it's going to prevent us from doing anything. We unclipped it here. We got the harness here out of our way. This breather hose that goes to the brake booster, can probably just take it and stuff it over here for right now. Well, at least try. We'll get that out of our way. Just shove it somewhere. I don't think it's going to obstruct us too much. All right, so we already got the wire harness, pretty much everything out of our way here. We just need to get our ignition coils out. So obviously the three 10 mils, we're going to get those 10 mils out and get the coils out, and then we'll get into getting the valve cover removed. All right, guys, 10 mil. Same deal as the other side. Just going to crack these loose with a socket wrench, 3/8 drive. You can use an impact if you want. Sometimes with these old plastic valve covers, and age and time and miles gather up, they a little bit more sensitive to using power tools. So probably a good idea to use a socket wrench. Camera is falling all over the place on me, guys. This thing never wants to stand up. Always fighting me, always in my way, but it's the nature of recording videos. So got these ignition coil bolts all broken free, all 3 10 mils. So all I'm going to do is take them each out individually and put them right up on the cowl, out of our way until we need them for the reassembly. So there's 1, there is 2, and then we got the front one here for 3. All right, guys, there is the 3rd one. All of them are out. So now that we have each 10 mil out, same deal, pull up on the coil and just pull them right out. All right, so we're just going to pull all these out, get them out of our way, and then we'll get into taking the cover bolts out. This back one's going to be a hair tight here with this abomination right above it, but if you finagle it a hair gently, you should be able to get it out. All right, guys, time to get the 10 mil bolts out of this side on the valve cover. So here is the sequence for the driver left hand side. Okay, as you can see, we got the oil cap on there reflecting to match up with the oil cap here on this driver side. So we want to remove these in reverse order, so I'm just going to break them free in reverse order. So we're going to start with 10, which is the rear one here up against the firewall, the least fun. So we'll crack that one loose first, and then from there we'll go through the sequence in reverse order, getting all these broken free. All right, guys, number 10 broken free, and go ahead and go on to 9, which is this one right here up front. Okay, 9, and then we'll hit 8, which is the back corner over here. All right, and that's all we're going to do, guys. Just break all 10 of these free, going through each one reverse sequence, and then we'll get them out. All right, guys, just want to bring you in real quick. That one down there, number 7 in that back corner to the driver, most to the driver's side, up against the firewall, not fun. I used a quarter drive on a little ratchet to get it, so that was how I fit in there. That was the only thing that fit. But yeah, number 7, super tight. You're going to need something small to get in there. All right, so just want to note that. All right, guys, I got all 10 of them broken free, 10 mils in sequence. So now I'm going to do is back each one of these guys out. So just backing them out by hand. Once they're broken free, you should be able to get them by hand after a few turns. All right, so that's pretty much what I did. Broke them free in sequence, hit them with a few turns, and now I can get them out each individually by hand. Okay, so there we go, guys. We're going to get all 10 of these out, and then we should be able to squirt the valve cover out. All right, guys, got all 10 valve cover bolts out. All right, so everything retaining our driver's side here is out bolt wise. Don't know if we're going to be able to give it the old pull-a-roo. Don't believe so. So go ahead and try to get this thing up with a little crack of a pry bar, and it should come right up without damaging anything. So let's go ahead and get this thing off. All right, guys, I'm gonna try to hit the same spot I did on the other side on the passenger. Yep, right there up against the fuel rail. All right, so I need to maneuver it around here. I'm hoping this abomination here doesn't obstruct us here. Might have to fire that thing out. We'll see here. Got it slid forward, or slid back towards the firewall, I should say. Move that out of the way. Definitely tight, guys. Super tight. See if I can slide it like this, up and out. Yep, there we go. So we got it. There's the valve cover ripping and coming. See how bad this thing is. This one disintegrated. This thing's all ripped up, but there we go, guys. Valve cover gasket. Got another piece on here. Ooh, this thing is on here. I'm gonna have to work on that piece. That thing is bad. Yeah, there we go, guys. That side is off. Good to go. All right, guys, we can get a look in here now. We can see that a lot of this is pretty dirty. Just as dirty, if not dirtier than the other side. Same thing in each corner of where the camshaft was. We got RTV. So definitely want to get that up. Nothing crazy. So I already reviewed cleaning this on the other side. I used plastic razor blades on the RTV. I used paper towels, brake cleaner. You can also use the greaser, and I used red Scotch-Brite. So that is the recipe for cleaning this up. I'm going to be doing the same thing on this side as I did on the other. So just want to note that is what we're looking to do here. So that's where we're at, guys. Let's get this cleaned up. All right, guys, after some deep cleaning here, same approach as the other side. We got everything nice and cleaned up. Looking really good. Everything ready for install. So, driver's side cleaned up. Let's prep the valve cover, get it ready, and then we'll get into the install. All right, guys, as I mentioned, you will need a new valve cover, so refer to Rock Auto for getting the left and right hand valve cover. This is the left hand. It's a little bit bigger than the passenger side. So like I mentioned on these seals here, this is what the spark plug seals are built in as part of the valve cover. I would suggest putting a little bit of oil on there for lubrication when you go to install. We have our valve cover gasket here, already reviewed that, the Felpro VS 50608R. All right, this side is going to be the longer side. Okay, so this is the bigger gasket from the two. We're just going to go ahead and line this up and get this thing installed here. So same deal as we did on the passenger. We'll just start it up here in that corner, which is obvious as to what and where it is. So we'll get it started here, and then we'll just start pressing in that lip into that valley all the way around so we have this nicely seated and even in the valve cover. All right, so there we go, guys. Just got to get the valve cover prepped up, ready to go, and then we can get this thing installed. All right, guys, so as we reviewed, this is all cleaned up and ready for installation. So we are going to be putting RTV here in the corners just as we did on the passenger side. So I'll be using the Right Stuff black RTV. As I mentioned, you can get this at Advanced, AutoZone, Walmart, Amazon, anywhere you want to get it. But we're just going to take a little bead here in this corner. All right, this particular bottle comes out pretty fast, to be honest, so trying to tread carefully here. But there we go, guys. Got a nice little bead there. All right, so we got that corner, and then we're just going to come up here to this corner here. It's kind of tight in there. Got a kind of big globby there, but all good, not the end of the world. Just a little bit there for safe measure. All right, so I'm going to let both of those corners set up for a minute, and then we're going to take our valve cover and sneak that thing back in and then get it all torqued to spec. All right, guys, we got our valve cover here all ready to go. So this is nothing too crazy, but we do need to be extremely careful and get this dropped in evenly so we don't smear the RTV all over the place. We got it pretty good on the passenger side. Hopefully we can get the same deal on this side, and I'm already stuck here. Let's see what I'm stuck on. Jeez. All right, so just kind of gotta sneak it right back in the same way you pulled it out. All right, I'm pretty darn close. Just gotta get under this here. So nothing back here is obstructing me. I'm trying to hold it up and off of the RTV, and I think I'm good, guys. Start pressing that down and in. I look like all my bolt holes are just about aligned. Guys, once you got it aligned, press it down evenly from the center to get the spark plug well on the valve cover to seat. All right, so those seals to seat. So we want it. All right, so there we go. That all RTV'd up, looking good, guys. So now I'm just going to start our 10 mils and finger thread them around. All right, guys, so we got all 10 finger tight as best as I can get them. Some are probably a hair looser than others, but I did the best I could. So we are going to go ahead and go through the torque sequence again. Remember, there's a step 1 and step 2. Step 1 here is going to be to 17. So we're going to run through the entire sequence 1 through 10 at 17 inch-pounds, just as we did on the other side. Same deal here. So we're going to go ahead and start with 1 here. Worst possible spot. Trying to find an extension that's going to get me in there cleanly. All right, guys, I'm on 1. All right, so just going to get this thing locked into 17, and we're going to go through the entire sequence, locking each one of these 10 mils to 17 inch-pounds in step 1. All right, this one had a little bit ways to go. All right, guys, 17 on that one. So we got number 1 locked in. So we're going to go ahead and jump right across the way here to the opposite side for number 2. Go ahead and lock this one in. 17 inch-pounds first step. Okay, there is 2. We're going to go down to 3, which is behind 1. So let me get down on that one. A little tight, but extension made it work. So we're going to torque that one in next, and then we're just going to finish out this sequence to 10, going to 17 inch-pounds on each one of these 10 mils, guys. All right, guys, so we got through the first torque sequence, which is 17 inch-pounds. Okay, so we're going to get on to the next sequence, which is just going back 1 through 10 to 74 inch-pounds. Same thing we did on the passenger side. All right, guys, so let's get this driver side. Second step locked in, 74 inch-pounds. All right, guys, we're going to jump right into the second step here. Start right here with number 1. That locked in to 74 inch-pounds. Nothing at all, guys, not much at all. Let's get to number 2. That one can use a little bit more. There is 2. Jump back down here to number 3. All right, guys, got the camera falling all over. It's in my way, unfortunately, but there's 3 locked in, 74 inch-pounds. We're going to get 4 here. There we go. So there we go, guys. We're just going to go ahead, finish out the sequence, locking each of these into 74 inch-pounds, and then we'll have this entire valve cover here on the driver's side torqued to spec. All right, guys, driver's side, left hand, all torqued in to the second step of 74 inch-pounds. So we got this entirely installed. So as I mentioned, I am doing the plugs in this job, so I'm going to go ahead and replace these 3 plugs, and then we'll get into the reassembly, guys. We are on the home stretch. It's just a matter of reassembly at this point. So still got a little bit to do here, but I'm going to get these plugs replaced, and then we'll get into the reassembly. All right, guys, I got all new plugs in each cylinder, so all good to go. Got new plugs. Like I said, this is a good time to do it, so if you have intentions of replacing your plugs, do it now. This is the job to do it on. All right, so let's go ahead and get our coils back in. So just going to grab each coil individually, and we're just going to press it right back into place. All right, and we're going to line the bolt hole up and then start our 10 mil. All right, we're going to do this for all 3. Drop in the coil, press it in, drop the 10 mil in, start it finger tight, and then we'll torque all 3 of our coils to spec. All right, guys, just going to go through, torque each one of these 3 driver's side ignition coils to 62 inch-pounds. All right, so 62 on that one. Socket's stuck here, but that's all right. Get that thing off, get to the next one. 62, if I can get on it. Jeez. All right, 62, and that last one is going to be a little bit hard to get to just under all that hosing and stuff there, so I just got it a 3/8 or a quarter drive on a 3/8 adapter into a 3/8 torque wrench, and it's, as you can see, just enough clearance to get me under there. So 3/8 drive torque wrench, 3/8 to quarter drive adapter into a quarter drive 10 mil, and we are torqued to spec, guys. All 3 ignition coils torqued to spec. So now we got this side pretty much back together. We can put a few things back in line here, just kind of how we did with the passenger side. All right, so we can start getting our coils back and all that. So let's get this back aligned up and arranged, and we'll get all this back together, guys. All right, guys, keep in mind the rear harness here. That's going to be your rear coil. So right here, running right off, right where that camshaft position sensor is in the back, that is our rear coil. Okay, so we'll get that one on first here. Hear that one click in. All right, and now we're going to get onto this harness right here for the coils, and they just fall right in line by length essentially. So that middle one is the shorter one, longer one reaches right to the far one here towards the front. All right, if I can get it on here. There we go. So that's all good, guys, looking good. We got that all connected up. We can take this harness here and we can plug that back into the valve cover on those little clamps. All right, so there's that, just how it was when we took it apart. All this feels good, looking good, guys. So now we do have our oxygen sensor here. That harness that we undid for the oxygen sensor, we're going to plug that back up. So remember, that's the one hanging off here to the side. All right, so we're going to get that bad boy plugged back in. Hopefully you can see me down here doing it. All right, guys, I got that plugged in, and keep in mind that did slide or press back in onto the metal tab here, so we're going to get that back oriented. All right, and how I got that oxygen sensor off of that metal mount bracket here is I didn't push the black tab out, I slid it off. So you can slide it off or you can press the black tab back in. Either way, you can get that oxygen sensor back connected. But you can see we have that harnessed all good. We got our rear coil plugged in, both of our coils plugged in, oxygen sensor plugged in. We got our main harness here running up along the side of the valve cover. Both of those wire tie push clips back in. So this is all about buttoned up, guys. We got this side looking pretty good, I would say. We could go ahead and take this evap hose, push that right back into place. All right, so one more thing we can get oriented here. Probably can push that back into place. If we gotta pop it back out, we can, but we got all this essentially back where it belongs, guys. I did shove this brake booster hose way back under there, so that's going to the back of the intake manifold. Okay, so we will route that back over there, but I think we're pretty much ready for the intake manifold, aside from this one hose that connects both of our valve covers here, guys. So let's get that on. All right, guys, so if you remember, we had the air hose that connects both of the valve covers here. It broke when we took it off. It's just really brittle and old. I tried cutting off the edges, but pressing it back on, it just split them again. There is no salvaging this crap POS U-hose, so I just went to Advanced and I got some hose by the foot, cut it to the exact same length that it was, and look at that, fits right on perfect. We're going to put it on both sides and make our own. Didn't want to go run out and buy new hose, but fortunately when you get into jobs like this on older vehicles that need work, these things happen, and sometimes you gotta make some emergency part runs, guys. So there we go, got our U here. Probably could cut a hair more off of the side just so I don't have that harsh bend there, but looks really good, guys, just about how it was. So I'm just going to cut that a hair shorter, and then that will be perfect, ready to go. But this is the hose I got, guys. It was from Advanced, so it's a half. I got 2 feet and cut it up. It was 28410. So 28410, half heater hose was what this hose is, guys. So that's what I used to make that hose and replace it, and there we go. I just got to cut it up just a little shorter to help that bend, and we're good. All right, guys, cut it a hair shorter, and look at that, man. That thing is looking OEM. Got it pressed on evenly on each side. Nice new clean hose. Good to go. So, if we're looking at everything here, everything is about back together, okay? So we are essentially ready for, I'm gonna move that harness out of the way over to the side, but we are essentially ready for the intake manifold install, okay? So we got our couple hoses positioned here. We got the one from the brake booster, and then we got the one right there coming off the back of the valve cover, which go accordingly with our two tabs right there on our intake manifold. So we can go ahead, get this thing up. Definitely saved us on some debris because there was some debris on there. So what I want to do is just take a paper towel with some brake cleaner. I'm going to rub that surface off, get it nice and clean, and then what we're going to do is replace the intake manifold gaskets here and then get our intake manifold back on, guys. So let's get into it. All right, guys, I got that wiped down just with some brake cleaner and a paper towel. Nothing crazy, just want to get the surface clean and get a nice mating surface for when we put the intake manifold back on. So if we're looking here, we have some older intake runner gaskets, so we're going to get those replaced, then get our manifold flipped back over and on. All right, guys, so here is our part for the intake manifold. So we have our runner gaskets right here. Got another Felpro for the intake manifold. The part number is MS96454-2. As you can see, Nissan 4.0. That is the gasket. It also comes with the lowers and the uppers. Obviously, we're only doing the uppers in this job, but it does come with both. So there is the part number. Take these gaskets right over to the manifold and get them installed. All right, guys, doesn't hurt to take one of these and match it up. So I'm just going to put it in there. Looks good. We're going to go ahead and peel these bad boys out. They might be ripped and rubber welded in here, but that one came out not too bad. So there's one. We're just going to work our way down here and start pulling these things out. This one's a little tighter here. There we go. Got that one going. All right, second one out. Down to our last one here. All right, got that one out too, guys. So I want to do the same thing, just wipe this down real quick with a paper towel and brake cleaner, and then we'll get our new gaskets in. All right, guys, so we still have our intake manifold here flipped over. Hopefully it's not the worst glaring view, but we had this little tab here that was on each cutout edge to help pull it out. So that's how it goes back in. So we got our new Felpros here, if I can hold on to it. I did wipe down the bottom of this, like I said, with just a paper towel that was wet with brake cleaner. So just dampened a paper towel with brake cleaner, and then I just wiped it right off. Okay, so there's one. Just want to take your hand and straight and evenly as possible press on it. Okay, and that is nice and flush and even, and we're just going to do the same thing for the other two. So make sure you got your tab on the end oriented. Press it on in right into the valley of where it goes, and then we're just pressing it in by hand evenly. Nice straight hand pressing it in. Okay, last one, same deal. Make sure you get it oriented correctly with the tab pressed in, and then flat hand, and then we got all three of our intake runner seals, gaskets, whatever you want to call them, installed, brand new, good to go. And we have that cleaned up for the lower intake right there, all cleaned up, ready for installation. So what we're going to do is flip this bad boy back over. We got to connect our hoses back up back there, but we're going to get all this, you know, oriented and back in. So I'm going to flip it over. We'll get our hoses connected and get this thing back in and torque to spec, guys. So let's get it reassembled. All right, guys, so if you remember, because of those coolant hoses, those two coolant hoses, I did not want to disconnect them. I just wanted to get the manifold out of our working way, and I was able to successfully do that by leaving just those two heating hoses still attached. That's all it's holding that in. So we just need to flip it back over. So I'm going to put the camera down, and then we'll get this thing installed, and we'll go through the motions of getting the intake manifold back in. So we're just going to carefully flip this guy right back over. I'll hold on to that while I do so. I'll try to anyway. See if I can put it right there. All right, so not trying to get this perfect at the moment because I do want to go ahead and get our hoses back on. So that rear breather hose that comes from the brake booster, the one that goes in the rear, the farthest one in the rear, I want that attached now before we get this oriented, just for ease of access and install. So I'm grabbing that hose and we're going to get that one back on and clamped up. All right guys, I got it on. Okay, so now that I have some playroom, I want to try to sneak some pliers in there and pull that clamp back forward. All right guys, so I got some longer needle noses. I'm going to try to press this back up towards me and see if I can pull that clamp into position. Since this is disconnected still, not bolted down, you should be able to push it up towards you. It should give you a little bit of playroom to move that around. And I think I just about got that hose clamped. So these needle noses are perfect size. Yep, there we go. I'm in the groove. I can feel it. All right guys, so that is back connected. So we got our breather hose coming from the brake booster back connected. Okay, now what we're going to do, the other hose is already routed. We'll connect that in a second. We're going to go ahead and push this back into position now that that is where it belongs. Remember, we have 2 studs, so we got to go over them studs, guys. All right, it's going to be a hair challenging, but nothing too crazy. Should fall back into place once you get it in the area. All right, there we go. Now this will go back when we're good and ready, but we need to do some bolt reinstallation and torquing before we put any of this back together, guys. So I have the bolts to the side. We're going to get all of our 10 mils back in, and then we'll go ahead and get everything torqued to spec. So I just have the 10 mils here, guys. Just going to drop them in finger tight. All right, so there's that one. Remember, we have 2 nuts, one on each stud. So the next one in here is a stud. We're going to put the nut on that, and we're just going to work our way down, putting in the bolts where they belong, guys. So we got the 2 inner ones here, don't forget. We got that one there. So get that one started for the 3rd one. Okay, get on to the 4th one, and then we'll get all 7 of these installed. All right guys, we are ready to torque our intake manifold to spec. So this also has a sequence. All right, and we did remove this in the reverse order. So here is the torquing sequence from the Nissan factory service manual. All right, we got 1 through 7 listed accordingly, and the bolts are going to be 8 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to convert this to inch-pounds for more ease and accuracy. It's going to be 96 inch-pounds. So 8 foot-pounds or 96 inch-pounds, same thing. We are converting them again. So let's go ahead and get this thing torqued to spec. So the first one is going to be right here. All right, so got this locked in, inch-pound wrench, 3/8, 96. Get this thing going right here at number 1. Bang, locked in. So we got number 1. We are now going to go to number 2, which is the inner one behind it. Okay, so let me get locked in on that. There we go. That is number 2. So now we're going to get on to number 3. 3 is the forwardmost inner one. So this one right here. You can see where I'm at. I'm gonna move the camera here. Hopefully you can see a little bit better. There we go. On that inner one, sneak it around our parts here. So there we go. That is 3. On to 4, which is the nut in the rear. So that is number 4. Torqued. Then we're going to get to number 5, which is the front nut. 5. 6 is going to be the rear one, so I'm going to take the extension off, and I should be able to get to it with just a deep socket on a torque wrench. Let's see here. Still have that harness disconnected, and then we want it disconnected so that way we have a little bit of playroom here to get to it if we can. Let's see, there we go. On it. I'm gonna have to inch my way, guys, because of the room I have as far as torquing. I'm gonna try to get that a hair tighter by hand here. I'm not really getting too far with this. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and snug it in, guys. The torque wrench is fighting me. I'm kind of over it, I'm not gonna lie. So you can kind of feel these things out if you got experience. If not, might want to go get a tighter, smaller torque wrench, but there we go. It's got it locked in. You can feel it out. It feels just like it did with the torque wrench. So we got that number 6 locked in. So that is the rear one, number 6. And then we got the last one, guys, which is number 7, which is the front one right here, which is probably about the easiest one to access with a torque wrench. So let me get that one locked in. There it is, guys, torque to spec. I'm just gonna check all of them one more time, just hit them, make sure they're at click. Feeling pretty good. Doesn't hurt to go back and double check anything you torque. Valve cover bolts, spark plugs, intake manifold, whatever, guys. So there we go, guys. The collector, intake manifold, all 7 bolts are now torque to spec in sequence, 8 foot-pounds or 96 inch-pounds. Good to go. All right, guys, so manifold, torque to spec. So now we just have a little bit more buttoning up here to do, and we should be good. So we do also have our bracket bolts that we need to put in on the passenger side, which we will do. First thing I did is I put this 12 mil in here just so we don't lose it for this guy right here. So we're gonna let this fall back into place here, right where it belongs, so you can see where that tab holds it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start that 12. All right. So we're going to get that 12 started off there and get that finger tight, and then I'm just going to snug this down with a 3/8 drive. Nothing crazy, okay? So that is a 12. It's got a 12 on a deep socket 12 on a 3/8 drive. Bang, just snugged it in, guys. That's all you need to do. Get it tight. Doesn't need to be anything ridiculous. Now remember, we do have our harness here. We do need to plug this guy back up and in, so let's do that. Got that plugged back in. All right, so that looks good. If you remember, we did get our fuel line put back in. We have this air line that goes back in right here. Okay, that is good to go. We also have our line right here. So this is gonna go right back into the groove and slide right back down over that nipple right there. Okay, that is good to go. So we just got to clamp that hose back down and this will be back together. All right, guys, nothing crazy here. Just going to take our hose clamp, work it right back down into position. Bang, right back into its original orientation. When you do hose clamps, you can usually see where the clamp was. It'll have an indentation outline where it was, so you just want to try to get it as perfect back into the position as possible. Okay, so let's take a look here. Everything is looking pretty good. We can plug our throttle body back in with this harness. So just make sure that harness is in. So we got that harness in. All right, all this is looking good, oriented as it should be. This is going to our air box. All right, we are going to come over here to the passenger side. We did get the breather hose from the brake booster already hooked up. If you remember, we do have this hose right here as well, so we do need to get that one back over. So we're just going to work that back on just like that, and then we're just going to get that hose clamp on, and then that hose will be back on. All right, guys, I just got some longer needle noses. Just going to squirt that back into position. Like I said, you can kind of see where it was initially. Bang. All right, and that is right back into its exact orientation where the clamp was initially. All right, so hose is good. Now, if you remember, we do have our two 12 mils down here on the sides of the bottom. All right, they do need to go back in to retain this side of the intake manifold. So I just kept them up on the cowl. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get those finger threaded back in. So we got that one started. One's going in, and then we'll get the front one started, and then we'll lock both of these 12 mils in. All right. All right, guys, I'm not going to be doing anything fancy with these 12s. It's got a ratcheting 12 wrench, and we're just going to get these both locked back in. All right. All right, so both 12s are now locked in snug. It's got a few more things to do here, button everything up. So if you remember, we had our wire tie push clips right here on these brackets on the back of the manifold. Just want to go ahead, pop them back in so you get that main engine harness right back into its orientation where it was ran. All right, we got this last harness right here. Okay, so you should have the other side of this down behind the manifold. Might have been a little easier to do this prior, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, it's plugged in, and it also has the bracket spot right there to mount to. So if you can see, it does lock in, snap right back in on that bracket, guys. So that is all squared away back there. All right, we got the two wire tie clips. We got that harness plugged back up. Everything is looking about buttoned up here. Looking really good. I think we are good, guys. I think everything is reassembled. Double check, but I think we are good to go. So what we need to do now is get our air box back on, and we'll see how she's going to do. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get our air box back on. Now, I did put the 10 mils back where they belong, right in their position. So we'll go ahead and get them out. We'll have them ready for install. So we just need to sneak this thing back in here. So go ahead and lay it in position. You want to get that accordion back over the air box. All right, should find its way home just like that. You can turn it while it's loose, and then we can get it over the throttle body. All right, pushing it over the throttle body. There we go, guys. That is good to go. Your bolt holes should find their home and line up. So I'm gonna go ahead and put our 10 mils in, and then we'll get all this snugged down and reinstalled here. All right, guys, got our 10 mils here. Just gonna start them finger tight. All right, so now that I got those two 10 mils finger tight, I'm just gonna go ahead, snug them in with an impact. Okay, so we got both of the 10 mils retaining the back of the air box in. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and get our clamps reinstalled. All right, so we had our 8 mil clamps. You can use a flathead as well, whatever tool you decided to use, but just want to snug them in. I don't think I loosened this one, but I'll make sure it's good. Yep. And then we just have the two over here. I'll loosen both of them. So we'll snug that one. If I can get on it, geez. And then I'll hold this last one because it's really loosen that one up. There we go, guys. Snugged in. So air intake box is installed. Everything is back tightened up, good to go. We do have our breather hose here that goes to the air box, so we just need to slide this thing back on. All right, so that's back on, and we just need to pull the clamp back over, and this thing will be good. All right, guys, it's got some decent sized pliers here for a good grip. Go ahead and get that thing right back into its original orientation. Just like that, guys, right back into where it belongs, into its indentation groove. So that is good. Everything here is reinstalled, guys. We have this fully back together. All right, so I'm going to double check everything, make sure everything looks good. We have everything here buttoned up, essentially, other than the two 10 mils putting the cover on. I do need to put the negative battery terminal back on and get that secured, but everything else, as far as our valve covers, intake manifold, everything is back together, ready to go, guys. So I'll put the negative battery terminal back on, make sure everything looks good. Just go over it one more time. We'll start this thing up and see how she's doing. All right, guys, negative battery terminal connected back up. Went over everything. Everything looks good. We got everything tightened back in. Everything is ran. All the lines and harnesses are plugged back up and in order. I think we are good to go. All right. Everything is looking really good. So let's start this thing up, guys, and see how we're doing. Promise I didn't cheat. So let's start it up and see where we're at. All right, guys, here we go. All right, start right up. This thing starts with a really high idle, so that's actually pretty normal. So honestly, it's doing what it typically does. Let's go check everything out here. This thing needs a new belt as well. The belt is in really bad condition. It's all cracked up. I think there's a little bit of belt drive noise from it. I'm gonna tell him about that. I didn't notice that. But everything here sounds clean. It's not, I mean, this thing is idling perfect. Look at that motor. It ain't moving a millimeter. Running really well and clean. Really clean. So we're gonna go ahead and let it idle for a few minutes, guys, and then I'll bring you back and see how we're doing. All right, guys, we've been running for about 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes at the most. Hasn't changed at all. Still running really good. I'm gonna check out if we got anything leaking. I didn't do the best job cleaning those bolts, unfortunately, but nothing's leaking down the side. Looking good over here. And guys, it might take a couple drives to really notice if it's, you know, fixed or not, but you'll know pretty good idea, about 80% chance that if it's not leaking after some idling and running for a bit, that it's good. This looks really good too. I did miss the little valleys right by the exhaust manifold cleaning and, you know, right underneath of the valve cover. But if you look at that lip underneath of the bolts, all right, she's bone dry, guys. Everything looks good. I don't see anything coming down where our RTV is. Check this side. That looks good, guys. Everything looks good, sounds good. And how this vehicle typically operates, the idle comes down and it's good, guys. Nothing on the dash. Everything good, running correctly, good to go. So I hope this helped with doing the valve cover gaskets, the valve cover and intake manifold gaskets on your 4.0 Nissan Pathfinder. Make sure you stay tuned, because you never know when I might be wrenching on this thing again. And until next time, guys.